Our big focus today on the South edition of the Property Show is to establish accountability for the disastrous past few weeks that Chennai has experienced. The Tamil Nadu government says it can't be blamed for the widespread flooding in Chennai after the heavy rains. They're calling it a freak of nature, and they're obviously denying official indecision and mismanagement. But is climate change really to blame for the flooding in Chennai, given how the rainwater runoff couldn't find an exit for days throughout Chennai, leading to massive water stagnation? Doesn't the city's town planning come into question? Wasn't Chennai a man-made disaster? That's the big question. And to answer that, we have with us Mr. Niranjan Hiranandani, MD Hiranandani Communities. Mr. Hiranandani, thank you so much for joining us from Mumbai. From Chennai, we are joined by Ajit Kumar Chodia, President Credit Chennai and MD of Olympia Group. And to bring in the environment perspective, we have Nisha Thota, Eco Consultant, Sustainable Development. Mr. Hiranandani, Mr. Chodia and Nisha, thank you so much for joining us today. Nisha, I want to come to you first. From your perspective, you write a lot on environment issues. Who do you really hold accountable for what residents went through for the past few weeks when it rained so heavy in Chennai?
Obviously, we have to hold responsible everybody, like not only the government, the people, and of course the builders, everybody, because we have taken away most of the water bodies and we have made residential plots, and people have been not wise enough in choosing their properties and stuck up with these floods. So obviously everybody is to be blamed, not just one person, according to me.
Okay, but how do you educate the home buyer? How is the home buyer to know which zone is in a flood risk area? Ajit, and to that respect, many are now pointing fingers at unplanned real estate expansion. Can we hold the real estate industry to blame for building on natural lakes or low-lying areas? Where does the buck stop?
I think, see, if you cannot blame builders, all the developments which have taken place are taken place on the legal patta lands. The lands have been allotted over a period of time. If there has been a degradation, there has been a destruction of water body, it is not something which has happened overnight or in the last 10 years. Even if you look at pre-independence, number of water bodies have been converted into for urbanization, the rapid urbanization which has taken place, and post-independence also this trend has continued. So I just don't think that you could blame anyone for one particular person for this particular thing, and the last person to be blamed is the developer. See, there is a difference between a developer and an encroacher. If someone has encroached onto water bodies and built, then that is one particular part. But if it is a developer who has built on a legal land, which is in a planned area, the government has come out with so many plans. The first master plan was there, the second master plan was there. These all areas were declared as urbanizable. And even today, after a long process of a sanction, if a developer does, if the infrastructure lacks, developer alone cannot be held responsible for that.
Okay, so many are in fact questioning that we should rework the Chennai master plan as a whole. We'll come to that later. Mr. Hiranandani, you have projects in Chennai and Mumbai region. The devastation that we saw in Mumbai in 2005, Chennai seems to be a repeat of that. Did we learn any lessons from Mumbai, and are we wiser now after Chennai?
You must see our project at Oregon. We didn't have a single problem at all in any of our buildings, not even in the basements. So all this was water-free in spite of the fact that there was the heaviest rain ever in 100 years. But I think the planning within the projects become extremely important. But stormwater drains and other things in the center of Chennai, I think needed to be worked up. But 100-year maximum rain, I don't think any city can be actually prepared for completely. So there's always going to be some problem, but I think in this case the problem was a little excessive in spite of the heaviest rain that we found. So there are two parts to the story. One is the external infrastructure which the city has to develop, and second, internal infrastructure within the townships which we can do within our townships, which fortunately for us proved to be excellent.
What is it that you did, Mr. Hiranandani, in your township? What is it that you did differently that you could cope with the massive flooding?
I think there were three parts to it. One part was the fact that we saw that our high flood line in terms of levels of all the buildings were kept higher than the high flood line. So we really didn't have flooding in that respects, except in a few areas of the basements. And in those basements also you had adequate pumping facilities to be able to pump out in those locations. And the third is also the fact that we had enough people within the complex which took care of all the disaster management issues within the complex. Even for all the workers who are working over there, we provided for adequate amenities in order to take care of them. Those who were at low ground were brought to the high ground and taken care of throughout the flooding time. So we were able to take care not only of our own staff but also the labor contingent. Buildings were absolutely dry.
Okay, so that's what Mr. Hiranandani did for his particular project. Coming to the city and its town planning, Nisha, we have been coming across a lot of comments about how several town planning mistakes have been made in Chennai. All the low-lying areas, marshlands have been eaten up for the IT corridor. Its water bodies which would absorb the rainwater runoff, those have been built upon. Is there a point of return to sustainable urban development in Chennai? Is there something that we can do now to build the city's defenses against such natural shocks?
Yeah, no, we have to revisit on all these areas and try to see like where we have really gone wrong. Of course, as the earlier guest has said, there's two parts, the stormwater drain and the sewage system. Now both are really being disturbed to a very large extent, and Chennai and Bombay has a better drain system which could deal with about 20 centimeters of rain, and Chennai can deal with only 10 centimeters of rain. And now it's high time that we have been rapidly growing as a city, and we have to now provide enough infrastructure for all these IT corridors and everyone, for them to come and do the investment. We have to provide all these other facilities, especially like to deal with situations like rain, and even in future we don't know what we might encounter, so we should be prepared for it. And we can definitely rework on all these things, and the smart city plan which is in place, I think we should be putting in a lot of expertise and a lot of scientific knowledge to it to understand where we have really gone wrong and try to put things in place for the coming generation.
Okay, Ajit, they're planning a smart city in Poneri. Nisha just mentioned a smart city, and experts are pointing out that they're again making the same mistake of building on floodplains, on natural lakes. Do you think that would be a sustainable plan? Do you have confidence in the Tamil Nadu government's ability to develop a smart city when the existing city's infrastructure is not sufficient enough to deal with the flood water runoff?
No, I think we need to appreciate, we need to look at if the Poneri is a satellite, it is not contiguous with the existing city, so it comes away. So in terms of planning, you can do a much better planning if it were to be a satellite city. So I personally, and we at CREDAI also believe that a satellite city is an excellent option to go. Today, if you look at the urbanization which has taken place, the infrastructure takes a long time to catch up. The city has grown rapidly in the last 3 decades. If you look at last 20-25 years, looking at Pallikarnai marshes and places beyond that, the IT corridor, all these things have come and they have developed. The infrastructure is yet to come in those areas. And even the corporation limit has just only last year it has been expanded to cover some of these areas. So the corporation is also not able to bring in the basic infrastructure which is there. We may just have road, we may have a power supply, but we don't have water supply, we don't have sewage network, and so also the stormwater drainage system. Some of these areas have been protected because they have been on the banks of, say, Buckingham Canal, which was not flooded, and water was carried. The biggest damage has been only by the Adyar River which is there. So in and around Adyar River it gone. And this particular incident which is there is unprecedented. I don't think we are talking of 100-year flood line. Almost any large development which takes place, everyone takes care of the 100-year flood line. But the 100-year flood line has now been rewritten. So entirely, if you look at our IT parks, a couple of large IT parks have been submerged. Almost 60-70,000 people are not able to work for the last 10-15 days. So it is a catastrophe of unimaginable magnitude which is there. I don't think any amount of planning would have helped as far as this particular rains are concerned. But going forward, I'm sure a number of areas could have been prevented had there been natural drains which were there. smaller channels which were there, if they could have been planned, I don't think it's a major problem. CREDA is also looking at commissioning a study by which we are able to identify the areas which got flooded, the reason for flooding, and ways and means by which this particular thing could be mitigated in a short period of time.
Okay, what solutions do you propose in terms of urban planning of Chennai? Okay, 100 years, the most severe case of flooding in Chennai, but statistics say every 10 years Chennai does get flooded, and we still don't have a plan. You know, experts are calling for hydrological planning, mapping of the city to study the natural water channels. Should that be also integrated in real estate building plans?
See, a developer has a limited role. He would be developing his particular property. He can take care of the levels which are there, which are recommended by the PWD, which has all the data which is there. And he can perhaps even plan for the solid waste management. He can also plan for a sewage treatment and probably the disposal of the treated water which is there. But when it comes to flood, it is only the natural topography which is going to play, unless the government or the civic authorities are going to come up with a plan by which, if they find a particular area is low by a meter, how they are going to drain the water from that particular area, take it to the nearest river. And if the river banks are encroached, and if the river banks have not been desilted, and if the ponds have not been desilted, I think it is addressing the fundamentals. You really have to go back to fundamentals. There's nothing new which is there. Whatever little water bodies are still available, if they are rejuvenated and the channels which are there, we are fortunate that we are by the side of the sea, so whatever water comes, we do have 2 or 3 rivers which are there which flow through the city, and they are still capable of carrying enough and more water into the sea. So I think it is addressing the fundamental, desilting, removing of some of the encroachments, and taking care. There could still be few pockets where the water could be there. They will have to find some out-of-box solutions. Maybe pumping could also be a solution in the extreme cases which are there.
Okay, Mr. Hiranandani, now that the city is coming back to its feet and the issue and the whole episode is settling in, what has been your sense of the local administration's response to this calamity?
After the initial shock was over, I think the administration and the army and other people have really been able to put the efforts in order to reach everybody in the low-lying areas and otherwise, and in the peripheral areas of Chennai also. We have seen a lot of help and cooperation with the local revenue authorities. We have also been at assistance in the areas around our projects to help people in the areas which are low-lying and other things. So I think all in all, except for the initial shock where I don't think anybody anticipated what was happening and they were not prepared for the disaster management, I think as soon as they got the head of it, within 2 or 3 days, I think action was there on the ground. However, the disaster was widespread, and obviously there were some pockets which were very difficult to reach, and not many people could reach everywhere in time to help everybody. So barring pockets of difficulties, I think the civil administration did an admirable job.
Okay, and Ajit, how badly has real estate in the city been hit?
If you see the whole of the month of November, we had lost on account of rains. As it is, we had almost rains equal to what we have in 1 year we had in the month of November. So almost 1100 mm of rain had come in the month of November. So the month of November was washed out, and then we had this the flooding of the city in the early part of the December. So almost the December 15th is gone by the time we recover, and we are now moving into an not that auspicious month. So I think the market has been hit for about 2 months or so. The market will rebound come January 15th. Again, the auspicious period starts. So we are looking forward that the market is going to revive probably by around 15th. Pongal is the period where what is there in Deepavali in north of India. Here in Tamil Nadu, at least, we have Pongal, which is considered to be very auspicious. So come Pongal and post Pongal, we expect markets to revive.
Okay, so a 2-month backlog in Chennai, according to Mr. Chodia. Nisha, closing comments from you. As the market will revive after a few months, new projects will get sanctioned and launched. What would be your advice? What should be kept in mind so that such a calamity, if it ever occurs, at least water doesn't stagnate in the city and there are places of water to exit and not stagnate?
Yeah, I would probably say that people should be wise enough now to think about where they are going to be doing the investments. And personally, like coming to me, like the last year, the Mauli Vakam's incident recently, which has happened in the June or July last year. After which, like, I pulled myself out from one of the properties which I invested in that locality. So people like who really want to take a risk have to to go for it. And people who really want to put their hard-earned money in good property should think about their investment in better places, and also do their own homework in studying where these water bodies are, and have we already encroached these places, and it could be a disaster in the future. So we need to do our individuals have to be held responsible for whatever we have done, according to me.
On that note, I'll thank Mr. Hiranandani for joining us from the Mumbai studio. Sir, thank you so much. Mr. Choria and Nisha Thota joining us from Chennai. Thank you for your individual perspectives. Chennai, historically a floodplain. Statistics say every 10 years the city receives very heavy rain, and yet town planners of Chennai have allowed the city's water runoff channels to be built upon. 350 people died in this recent incident of floods in Chennai. If this is not a wake-up call to rework our urban planning, then what is? On that note, we'll take a quick break. Top residential projects across micro markets of Bengaluru coming up. Also on the show, best projects in the emerging destinations of Mysore. Also check out our property tracker for the latest property launches. It's Aparna West Side in Manikonda, Hyderabad.